Now you can hear Military Matters Wednesdays at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard and Sundays at noon on Wreaths Across America Radio, available on the iHeart Radio, TuneIn and Audacy apps. This episode is brought to you by Homes for Our Troops, a nonprofit helping build and donate homes to injured post 9/11 veterans. Visit hfotusa.org for more information.
They got me there.
So Jack is
there.
So this is great, folks. This is great podcasting because Jack decided to stand up and show me wounds on his side.
They got me with an airsoft rifle.
So he got shot. Tell us a little bit about that. I mean, we're gonna loop this into AI. I promise. I promise we're gonna do it. But I'm very curious. Tell us where those airsoft wounds came from, Mr. Murphy.
Well, I was instructing a course where we take people, civilians. I mean, anybody can sign up. I mean, actually, I think it's actually better probably for people going in the blind who have no kind of military experience at all. And we spend 2 days. I bring in a friend of mine who's a former CIA staff operations officer. And together we train them on tactics, weapons, lockpicking, source elicitation, surveillance detection routes, all this sort of stuff. And then at the end, the last day, there's an actual scenario that they're put into where they have to go out and, they have to cold bump a potential source, try to elicit information out of them and keep working that to resolve a fictional terrorist plot. And it ends, they do have to retrieve airsoft weapons and go assault a couple targets during the process of this scenario as they're gathering intelligence. And then the one we ran over the weekend, stop a bomb from going off.
And during all this, are you telling them how, they got to become better men? They become better fathers out of this?
No.
Okay. I didn't know if we were going that route.
I'm very careful and very diligent about like a couple of things. And like one, there's no political component to any of this. There's no indoctrination. There is no, I don't pretend, and I would never tell anyone we're training people to be spies or commandos. We're not. We're just giving them a fun experience over a weekend.
So they're not targeting Pansy Pelosi or anything like that, or
no.
Okay, just making sure. I didn't know if we needed to report.
There's no life coaching really. I mean, these are like some skills. Like maybe you take something away from it. Maybe it helps build some confidence. But no, this isn't like a men's rights activist group, or there's no political indoctrination. We don't go into any of that at all. It's fantasy camp, really.
That's pretty cool, though. I mean, a lot of people are very curious about the world that is the special operations world. And I think it's kind of cool to pull the curtain back and show people what it might be like. And, I think a lot of these civilians, when they go through these courses, they have to reflect and go, yeah, that's not for me. That's not something I want to do, all the time.
Well, I've run a few of these now, and it's interesting that a lot of the feedback I've gotten is actually people are responding not so much to like the airsoft shoot 'em up wars that we stage, but to the tradecraft aspect of it. And they're like, having to run a surveillance detection route, having to go and like cold bump somebody in a cafe and like start up a conversation with them and have something to talk about and to try to gain their confidence. They're like, I've never, ever done anything like that in my life.
Did you make them write reports?
No, I don't make them write 100-page
that's
reports.
Where you
because the intent is for it to be fun. So we give them all the fun stuff and cut out all the other stuff. Like in the first course, I did a cash recovery operation. Like you were doing like a military cash recovery. I did that with them. And dude, these students were walking right over the top of the cache for like 30 minutes. And I had to like intervene. I'm like, okay, guys, like you are literally standing on top, look down. So I'm like eliminating the things that are not fun from the course because we have limited time and people want to have a good time with the time they are spending with us.
That's BS. I think you should make them do planning and prep for at least a day and a half. And then when they go meet their source, that guy forgets to show up or he got the wrong day. Like, where are you, buddy? Oh, and
Yeah,
then make sure you follow that up with at least 6 reports. Each report has to be as detailed as the next one. That's the part nobody wants to talk
I mean,
about.
I also, we don't make people do push-ups and spray them with a garden hose or hold a rucksack over their head. There's
Are you really even doing this right if you're not doing that?
none of we don't do any of that stuff. We're just focused on teaching people. It's just focused on skills-based teaching, and having an enjoyable time. Yeah, there's no hazing.
There needs to be more hazing, more boring report writing. People need to hate their lives.
If people want a more challenging experience and they want to do the 20-mile ruck march through the woods, I mean, I can arrange that, if that's what you're looking for.
Masochist.
Yeah, so yeah, we haven't done anything masochistic to students thus far. You have to ask me for that. You have to use the safe word if you want me to turn it off. You have to ask for it if you want it.
That's right. Use promo code pineapple and you can get the special treatment. Folks, I swear. Okay, we're going to talk about AI now this time. So you got to sit down and talk with Paul Scharre, which is actually a pretty cool treat to actually sit down and talk with this guy. Very knowledgeable, former Ranger.
Yeah, man, me and Paul go way back. We served together in 375 back in the day.
So what happened here? So your buddy Paul goes and becomes a doctor, becomes an expert in AI, and you're doing podcasts and running LARP sessions. What would happen?
Yeah,
Jack?
basically that's how it went down, man. We went in two different directions. I became, vet bro PT Barnum, and Paul Scharre became like a legitimate scientist or some. You know that dude has people. Like, he has people that you have to talk to interview him now. I'm like, Paul, like, what's going on here that, you're the only person. I talk to like retired generals and stuff like that, and retired like directors of this and that, and NSC officials. I'm like, you're the only one that has like this staff that I have to go through. And he's like, it's like, yeah, it's supposed to like free me up to, I'm like, pursue your intellectual endeavors, right? He's like, yeah, that's it. Like,
that's pretty cool.
Okay, Paul. All right, dude. All right.
Based on the conversation you had with him, it's very possible Paul Scharre is going to be replaced by some type of AI automaton,
a robot.
robot.
No, he'll be okay. I'm going to be the one replaced by a robot, and AI is going to do my job.
It's possible, and that's something you discussed with Paul over your interview, is the different places that AI is making headroom in, especially in the defense industry. When you talked with Paul, is there anything that you discussed that kind of surprised you, that kind of like caught your attention in terms of where AI is fitting into defense and maybe the war efforts in Ukraine and all that stuff?
Well, I mean, I think Paul has a pretty like sober, clear-eyed view of like AI and what it is and what it isn't. And does a pretty good job of articulating it. As far as like surprises, I think one is, he points out that, this AI competition with China, like, is not lost. Like, they have, tremendous challenges. So it's not a hopeless endeavor, and we're actually further ahead in plenty of ways. The way he described, I mean, some of the stuff he was talking about, fighter aircraft and how far along AI has gotten with that was a little surprising. And I think it was just in the simulator, but he was talking about where they having actual fighter pilots in the simulator fighting the AI, and the AI is just trashing them. Like, it's not even close. And he was talking about how, like, when they go up against an AI, like, you can feel that it's an AI. Like, it's clear that it's not a human being behind that, because the AI makes like just mathematical decisions that a human being would never make. Like, he was talking about how, if you have two fighter aircraft coming head on, the AI will come straight at the other pilot and take a shot at him head on. It's like a human pilot would never do that because it's just so dangerous to execute. So is that going to bleed over into other things? I mean, I think back to like, Paul and I's background in the Ranger Battalion in the infantry. I mean, are we going to see that with ground-based AI systems that drive around as well? the sensor systems and everything else that soldiers are going to be confronted with in the future. I mean, it's going to be really interesting to see how that develops.
I think going to your point that a AI system would take a risk that a human wouldn't also takes, that idea kind of branches out when you start thinking about losses and attrition, risk versus reward. As a commander, you wouldn't send your troops into, let's say, capture a hill necessarily if you're going to just decimate everyone, or you're gonna lose 99% of your company. We saw stuff like that in Vietnam. We've heard about those stories about taking the hill, and we've lost everyone essentially. Those types of stories, those anecdotes come with some heavy emotional cost, right? We hear these stories, but as an AI, you would have no issues with that. Like, that's fine. I'll just keep sending things up that hill to capture the hill, and if they, right, we'll call for fire on our own position if we have to. We'll destroy our little automatons. That's fine. We'll build more. Humans won't do that. There's definitely human edge. There's a human factor here that AI is just it has that edge. But is there another side to that blade? I mean, is there a way that this works against AI?
I mean, how so?
Exactly. Well, I don't know. That's what I'm saying. That's exactly my point is, like, so taking the human factor out of it, like, yes, if I'm an AI jet pilot, I will fly right at you and drop rounds in a way that you would not do to me because you value your life. Well, is there a downside to that being AI? Is there a negative to AI's willingness or ability to have no sense of self-preservation?
I mean, maybe if it's destroying the platforms, in the process. I mean, we're only going to, you're still limited by resources and how many planes and such you're able to develop. But I mean, we can sit back, and we will sit back and kind of pat ourselves on the shoulder about our high sense of military ethics. And we need to directly confront our enemies, and we need to be on the ground and see the whites of their eyes. But I mean, first off, I think that ship sailed a long time ago. But beyond that, I mean, if the enemy that we are fighting in this future war is using those types of systems, I mean, we're going to use them too. Particularly if the war is not going very good for us. A lot of the morality will get shrugged off rather quickly. The gloves will come off with that. So I mean, yeah, I think we all need to like brace ourselves for the reality that we're going to have AI in the cockpit, that we're going to have eventually AI in the driver's seat. And it would be worthwhile to rethink the ethics of it now. We're not going to be comfortable with it regardless. It's going to push us outside our comfort zone, but maybe put some left and right limits on what we are and aren't willing to do now. Because as I think this is a human being trait, that we jump on these technologies and there's very little conversation or debate about, what is like the long range, social consequences of using this technology. Like I was, this is a little bit off topic, but I saw this commercial for this robot. It's like a $10,000 or $20,000 robot that you're supposed to be able to buy for your kid. And it has like the kind of like television screen face that makes expressions and stuff like that. And it's like an educational robot that will, nurture your child and elevate them and educate them and stuff like that. And as I'm looking at it, I'm like, has anyone studied or even thought about the long range social implications of having a generation of children that's at least partially raised by robots, by something that is not human? It's not even animal. It's not like the way a child bonds with a cat or a dog. It's an actual piece of machinery. Has anyone thought about this?
It's not even replicating the human. Like, one might argue, well, children have been raised by television. Well, yes, they've been raised by television, but it's images of people. It's right. A person on the other end of that. We're talking about a very mechanical, a machine being raised by emoticons, emojis. Like,
it's different.
It's different. I'm reminded of a scene. There was a back in like the early, oh, maybe the 90s, back when the Matrix was the cool thing. The first movie, The Matrix. They made this animated. It was like a DVD. It was like the Animatrix, I think it was.
Oh yeah,
it's called, right? And there's a scene where they're talking about the early wars with the machines. And I thought there was a scene in there that stuck with me ever since. And I always thought that was so human. That is such a thing we would do. The humans are engaged in trench warfare. The robots are over the trench. And before they send the guys out to go fight the robots, very World War I-esque, they got this the screen on a cart. And this guy is pushing the cart. And on the screen is a priest giving the last rites. And he's just pushing the cart along. And everyone's like, making their prayers. And he's like, doing his thing over television screen. And I always thought that was interesting to me because, like, we even then at our most fragile, we're like, yeah, we're not going to actually put a guy there. We're gonna do this. We're gonna do a telecon last rites. And knowing the Army, it's going to be over Teams and it won't work. The audio won't be, it'll be glitching. The other, so that's what, this conversation kind of brings me back to is the technology, right? So we're talking about technology at the highest levels. We're talking like DARPA. We're talking about DARPA is the Defense Advanced Research Project Agency. We're talking about like high level think tanks. We think about the defense industry. The defense industry is really composed of a lot of different things. The DOE, the Department of Energy. We got like Los Alamos. If you saw Oppenheimer, Los Alamos still exists, folks. It's still a place where like Department of Energy experiments are being run. I just saw this article recently about cold fusion. For the first time, like it's creating more energy than it takes to move, and some really cool, innovative scientific things are happening out there. And when we talk about AI, it's happening at the highest levels. My concern is at the lower level. We look at the tactical, or even the let's say, look at the battalion level intel community, right? At the battalion level, we're talking about, and we're talking about a place where people are still using Dell Optiplex computers that were cool about 10 years ago. Like the government at that level still doesn't do well with upgrading. I remember being in Iraq in 07, 09. And even then, Windows XP was not used. Windows XP had already been gone, hadn't been patched in years, and we were still using it in classified environments in 2007. I was like, holy smokes, like this is really not safe. I'm not a tech guy, but I know this is not a good idea. Fast forward 2023, definitely better. But I feel at these lower levels, we're still very far back from the word cutting edge. Like we're like, I guess, bread knife edged, if you will. Like we're lucky to have serrations. AI would be taking place way up here, right? It'd be happening at like high level strategic, like this is where we're going to dip into this. We're going to try using this, try using that. At that level, that's where real consequences happen, right? That like high level strategic, that's where one wrong move can have far implications, and the lower levels not so much. I'm just wondering, at what point does AI trickle down to those battalions and company levels? At what point do we start looking at like mill chat GPT?
I think pretty quickly. I think as far as like using AI to identify targets on the battlefield, through drones and stuff like that, I think that's like not far off at all.
But what about for decision making?
Is this that's the question.
Yeah.
Right now, the official policy is like, in order to do something lethal, there has to be a human being inside the targeting continuum, right? There has to be a human decision maker in there. Again, if we went to war with an enemy that did not have human decision makers in the AI and just let the AI just handle the entire thing, and they're deciding and they're making decisions faster than we are, how long before we reverse course on that policy, right?
Well, yeah, exactly. So that's an interesting point. So when we're pushed against the corner, when we're pushed into a corner, are we more likely to let the AI off the chain and go get him, Tiger. Whatever you think is right, go get him. Like whatever decisions you think are going to change the war for us, go get him. Is that the point that we let the genie out of the bottle?
I think so. I mean, when we have human fighter pilots going up and dogfighting the enemy's fighter AI, and they're losing 10 times out of 10, bro, that policy's gone. It'll be gone overnight.
So let's look at Russia, though. Russia is still, top 3 in the world. It's still a formidable opponent. They still got a pretty decent economy. They're still pumping stuff out. Some leading scientists, hell, they've stolen some of our scientists and so on and so on. Have we thought about their AI capabilities? I mean, at what point are they going to say this war in Ukraine is not going the way we want? Hey, AI, go win the war. I don't care what, General Pavlov is thinking. I don't care about what these generals want or what the troops want. I'm recruiting 70-year-old guys to go fight a war. Right. We're desperate. Mill Chat GPT, win the war in Ukraine, enter.
Well, I mean, first, you're seeing the limits of the technology as it currently stands, right? But also, I mean, based on everything that's unfolded in Ukraine, I mean, I don't think anyone's taking the Russian military seriously for quite a while. Yeah, good luck getting that off the ground. But I mean, conceptually, what you're saying, I mean, it's true. And I mean, the AI race is currently being fought with China. And I mean, I think that's going to be, but you can take the same scenario and, we could see it play out over Taiwan, for instance. Yeah. Do we end up in that scenario? But see, the interesting thing about AI and all these other technologies we have and what we've seen in Ukraine is that, okay, you have all this technology, you have these cyber warfare tools, you have these electronic warfare tools, all this sort of, but at the end of the day, you still need to take the trench line. Like at some point, you need to send troops forward, bounding forward, lob some artillery rounds, some mortars, and send infantry forward, lobbing hand grenades into the trench line, rolling into the trench and clearing them with rifles. Like that still has to take place at some point. And the Russians very much ran up against that.
When we're looking at this world of this future war, and I think this could have been probably a whole series we could have done about future war on AI. We're talking about AI in these platforms. You brought up a great point. The AI is reliant on these platforms. The human animal can just get up, grab a pack, some water, food, ammo, weapon, go forth, do your mission. They may not even return. I've always said the human intelligence, for example, you don't need a fancy computer. You don't need all this other stuff. If you give a human intelligence guy or a counterintelligence guy a pad of paper and a pencil, they can do their job and convey intelligence back to the rear and get these reports up. AI dependent on platforms. But there will be a point, right, where the platforms will become we're talking about AF-18s up here and jet fighter pilots way up here. There's got to be a point where the technology on the ground meets AI, right?
Yeah, and there's a whole interesting conversation there about the cloud computing centers and data centers and everything. And the last time I was aware of, as of like maybe a year ago, some of those data centers are civilian data centers. And so there's a whole conversation about if we go to war, are those legitimate military targets? And I mean, I think they are. There's no way that you can say that this computing power being used for the Department of Defense and to process targeting information, you can't tell me that's not a legitimate military target. And those are data centers around Virginia and areas there. No one's really thinking about that right now, but I mean, it would be a completely legitimate target to lob a cruise missile into.
Yeah, there's places I've driven by that I remember they were like, it was fenced off. There's nothing really there except for a small building, but there's like a lot of large vents just spewing out heat.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, I wonder what's down there. Folks, we were talking about AI. Go check out that interview with Paul Scharre, Dr. Paul Scharre.
Is he a doctor? Does he have a PhD?
I don't know. You tell me, Jack. You interviewed him.
I don't think he does. That's why
I think he does.
I'm gonna call bullshit on this.
I'm gonna call bull on you, man. I'm gonna say he's Dr. Paul Scharre. How much you want to bet, Doctor?
Executive Vice President and Director of Studies at CNAS, author of 4 Battlegrounds. I don't see any PhD on Paul's resume. He'll probably have a PhD one of these days, but
I think he has one.
Let me see here. He has a Colby Award, one of Bill Gates' top 5 books. All right. He worked for OSD, DOD. He was involved in the Quadrennial Defense Review. Gotcha. Now here he is, 375, Ranger School.
He holds a PhD in War Studies from King's College London and an MA in Political Economy and Public Policy and a BS in Physics from Washington University in St. Louis. You know who else has some BS? Jack Murphy, folks.
Where are you reading this?
PaulScharre.com/bio.
No, that's where I am too.
At the very bottom, my dude. Scharre has published articles.
Here we go. Okay, yeah, last sentence. So he went to King's College in London.
King's College. Fancy pants.
Yeah, good for him.
Yeah, Jack Murphy went to, Fayetteville Community College. Got his.
Hey, I will have you know, I am an alumni of the prestigious Columbia University.
Yeah,
political science program.
Columbia, huh? Yeah, that's apparent in your writing. Says the guy without the journalistic degree. All right.
I don't know. Folks, I don't have a journalistic degree.
What's your degree in?
Political science.
Political science.
Yeah.
Ugh, you're one of those people. Elitist.
No, I've never taken a single course in journalism, and that's where the joke comes in. That's where you say, "Well, that's apparent."
That's apparent.
Jack Murphy.
Pretty
obvious.
I'm not going after low-hanging fruit. That's beneath me, Mr. Murphy. That's beneath me, folks. If you want to follow Jack's adventures in LARPing, writing articles at just about everybody, and his really amazing interviews on his podcast, Team House Talk, or the Team House.
Coming up on 100,000 subscribers, man. We're on our way to YouTube royalty, Rod. Can you imagine it?
Holy smokes.
Yeah.
We are on the precipice of great things here.
Mm-hmm.
He has some great guests there. Always. You can find him on all social media platforms as Jack Murphy, RG.
I want to have you on the show, Rod, but I have to wait for you to completely get out of the military because I want the unfiltered, uncut, unadulterated Rod's opinions, Rod's takes on things.
It's going to be so left and right skewed. You're going to be like, who is this person? I've got a list of folks that I want to see on your show, though, because I want to see what they're saying. Like, there's a list of folks. I would love to see on the show.
Send me the list. I love lists.
Jack Murphy, RGR, across all the social media spheres. What's your Proton mail?
My Proton mail is
I have to look it up again. I love
Jack Murphy Reporter at protonmail.com.
There you go.
If you want to slide in there with some hot tips.
Folks, you can find me.
But I don't do UFOs.
What?
Just putting that out there.
That was so. If you all listened, I slid that little piece in there during last week's intro. I said one of Jack's favorite topics is UFOs. Make sure you hit him up on Twitter about it. He loves talking about UFOs, UAPs, aliens, and all things to do with.
I love talking to UFO Hunter 420 on Twitter about how the truth is about to be revealed to all of us. Yeah,
it's coming, folks. It's coming. You don't know, folks. You can always find me at RodPodRod and Stripes MM on Twitter. Feel free to shoot us emails, militarymatters@stripes.com. And we are looking forward to the end of the season. Unfortunately, this is our last season with Jack Murphy. He's going to leave us to go do bigger, better, bolder things in the world of podcasts and writing and video vlogs and TikToks. You can expect this TikTok dance coming out. Cannot wait. But the next episode is our final episode with Mr. Murphy. We will be talking about Mr. Jack Murphy. He will be the subject of our last and final episode with him. And then we will introduce him to his much better replacement, somebody who's actually going to do some work around here. About damn time. But yes, if you are a Jack Murphy fan, if you are a Jack Murphy hater, well, folks, this is your opportunity to shine. You got questions for Jack Murphy, you want to know what's going on in his world, shoot us an email at stripes at militarymatters@stripes.com. There we go. militarymatters@stripes.com. Shoot us your inquiries, your questions, your concerns, your hatred, whatever it might be. We're just going to sift through it, and we'll go through it, and we'll talk. We're going to have a good conversation. Folks, that does it for us. This was your Fast Take. Make sure you go back and listen to the AI episode with Dr.
Paul Scharre.
Dr. Paul Scharre. Folks, that does it for us. We'll see you at the next episode. Folks, be sure to head over to stripes.com and use promo code podcast to get 50% off your digital subscription to Stars and Stripes, the news source that has supported American service members no matter where they've been deployed to. Stars and Stripes has been there and continues to be there, so drop some characters in your address bar, stripes.com, promo code podcast, and lock yourself in for 50% off your digital subscription. This episode was brought to you by Homes for Our Troops, a nonprofit helping build and donate homes to injured post-9/11 veterans. Visit hfotusa.org for more information. Now you can hear Military Matters Wednesdays at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard and Sundays at noon on Wreaths Across America Radio, available on the iHeart Radio, TuneIn and Audacy apps.